Just by way of background, I'm not a mathematician, but I am a physicist. I work in the Cavendish laboratory, and I also oversee admissions across all subjects here at Corpus Christi College. So as James says, we're going to talk a little bit about the application process to Oxford and Cambridge, and we're going to focus a little bit on some of the specifics of what you can do to make your application stand out. Talk a little bit about the university first in general. University of Cambridge, of course, you're all familiar with this. It's one of the world's oldest universities, and we've been around since 1209. In that period of time, we've developed, I think, a really unique way of teaching our students. We're a place where many very important discoveries have happened, and we're a research-intensive university, meaning a lot of the teaching that you get if you're a student here comes from the very best and brightest in the world who are leaders in their field. And that makes it an incredibly exciting place to do an undergraduate degree. We offer 30 courses, but within those courses, and we'll talk a little bit about mathematics in a moment, there's a lot of flexibility for you to tailor your study around your interests. So fantastic options across all of the degrees. On average, we admit around 3,500 students per year. So it's a relatively small university when you compare us to, say, large North American universities. And very interestingly, we're what's called a collegiate university. So our structure is perhaps a little bit different than you might find when compared to other universities within the UK. And I'll just pick up a little bit on that idea of collegiate university and what it might mean to you as a student. So a collegiate university means that when you join, you become both a member of the university, but also a member of one of the constituent colleges. In Cambridge, we have 29 colleges that admit undergraduates. And you can see a beautiful picture of one of the colleges. That's our college, Corpus, there. The role of a college is really to act as your home away from home. So it's where you live generally for the 3 or 4 years of your degree. It's often where you socialize, so you tend to meet a lot of friends within these small academic communities. It's often where you get involved in extracurricular activities. So if you have a particular interest in something like music or sports or debating or board games, colleges provide that sort of social network. And it's also importantly where you have some of your teaching. So in Cambridge and Oxford, we specialize in small group teaching, particularly in the first 2 years of your degree. And these are often organized by the colleges. So if you come to study mathematics at Corpus, some of the people that you'll be seeing today would be involved in giving you small group supervisions. So working through difficult mathematics problems together for an hour or so each week. Colleges also provide a lot of support for you, so that academic support in the form of a director of studies. Daria, who you heard this morning, is one of those directors of studies, and she provides academic guidance to all of our mathematicians. But in addition to that academic support, colleges offer welfare support. So we look after your mental health and well-being, and we offer financial support. So we can often make awards for hardship and bursaries if a student requires it. So things you might want to think about when considering a college, and I'll say a little bit more about this later maybe. Some of the colleges are very old, some are very new, some are quite large, some are small like Corpus, some are located very centrally within the university, and some are a little bit further afield. So most colleges are quite similar in their structure, but maybe the facilities that they have, the accommodation that they have can vary from college to college. So maybe make your choice based on that, but don't worry too much about that in the application process. Now, I'll say a little bit about Corpus because we're obviously running this event. So Corpus within the university is one of the very oldest colleges, founded in 1352. On the undergraduate side, we are one of the smaller colleges. We admit somewhere around 94, 95 students per year. In mathematics, it tends to be between 6 or 8 students. We're a very central location, so we're right in the middle of the center of the city of Cambridge. But our small size, I think, creates a very close-knit and friendly undergraduate community. For mathematics, we're very well supported in terms of our teaching and research. So I think you've met Dr. Frank this morning, who's quite interested in turbulent fluid flows. We also have amongst our fellowship, and these are senior academic members of staff, Dr. Qingyuan Zhao, who is interested in causal relationships, looking at experimental and observational data. We have amongst our fellows, Christopher Brooks, who is very much a pure mathematician, works in representation theory of groups. And we have David Abrahams, who I think will be speaking shortly. So for a small college, we're kind of have a wealth of mathematicians there to do the teaching. Okay, let me talk to you a little bit about the application process. And just I'll pause in a few places to give you particular tips, bits of advice that you as prospective applicants in mathematics might want to pay attention to. So the general process is laid out here for you. At this point, you're in year 12 and you should be thinking about your course choice. So whether you want to do, say, a mathematics degree, or maybe you're more interested in, say, natural sciences or engineering. So think carefully about those choices, read prospectuses, weigh up your various options there. Once you've decided on your course, the next thing to think about, if you're applying to Cambridge, would be to choose a college or do what's called an open application. So when you apply to Cambridge, you choose one of the colleges, and it's that college that assesses your application and makes the decision as to whether or not you are admitted. If you can't decide on the colleges, they all look very similar and good, you can do what's called an open application, and an algorithm will assign you to a particular college that round. I would say there's no real advantages or disadvantages either way, but just pay attention if there's a particular college you like the look of or facilities you're interested in. My advice is to just choose that college and go with it. The next thing to think about is whether there's an admissions assessment or test for your subject. In mathematics, we don't currently have any pre-interview tests for the subject, but we do for engineering, natural sciences, economics. So if you're thinking about some of those as possible courses, be aware that there are tests. They're usually sat in sort of end of October, early November, and you need to prepare for those. So just keep that in the back of your mind. UCAS application comes next, so you submit that online, usually mid-October. Cambridge invites you, once you've submitted an application via UCAS, to fill out a little additional questionnaire. We call it My Cambridge Application, and that's all done online. Just gives us a bit more information about the topics that you've been studying in your courses. And there's an additional little box you can use to put in a supplementary personal statement, which just goes to Cambridge. So just be aware that's part of the process. The next thing on the checklist would be to take that admissions assessment if you're applying for a subject like natural sciences or engineering, for instance, and then you would find out about whether you're called to interview. We try to let candidates know with 3 weeks advance notice or more if possible. The interviews are usually held first 2 weeks of December. So just be aware of that if you're applying to Cambridge. Try not to book a holiday during that time, because that's usually when the interviews take place. Then we make our final decisions in January, and you're notified sort of mid to late January. Okay, I want to just mention a few things about the structure of the course. I'm happy to take questions on this later, and Daria, I see, is in attendance, so she can give me some support there. The structure of the mathematics course, you can find all of this online in the online prospectus, but I just wanted to pick out a few things for you. You can choose either pure and applied mathematics for your first year, or maths with physics. If you do the maths with physics option, you end up taking a physics paper with the natural scientists who are studying in the university. So you share that particular course. If you're not doing math with physics, then you just stick with the pure and applied mathematics for the whole year. In the second year, then you start to make a decision as to whether you're more interested in kind of the pure side or the apply side. There's 15 different options there for you to consider. In the third year, now you're really drilling down to your specific interests. A lot of flexibility there. At the end of 3 years, you can graduate with a BA degree, but some of our students stay on to do a 4th year. In Cambridge jargon, we call that Part 3 mathematics. There are something like 75 or 80 different options for you to study. Sometimes you're in a lecture with just 3 or 4 other people who have that interest with you, but it's incredibly detailed and at a very high level. So that's really exciting to challenge the very best mathematicians. And progression on to the 4th year of your degree is contingent on your performance in your 3rd year. So that's the rough structure of the course. Again, do take time to go and look in the prospectus to understand some of those options in a bit more detail. Okay, now I did mention too that there was no assessment for mathematics that you sit ahead of your admissions interviews. But I did just want to make you aware that many colleges, including Corpus, will sometimes set students a worksheet to do just ahead of their interviews. So you might show up to your interview, whether it's in person or online, maybe an hour beforehand. You're given a worksheet, you do certain subsection of those questions, and then you bring them through to the interview to discuss. So just be aware of that. The big assessment or exam, I suppose, in mathematics actually comes after you get your offer. So I'm sure you've heard about the STEP paper. If you haven't, that's the 6th term examination paper, and all mathematicians in Cambridge, their offers will be contingent on sitting papers 2 and 3 of this STEP exam. At Corpus, we normally require offer holders to achieve a 1-1 or sometimes a 1 and an S in these 2 papers. Now, it's good to think about these papers in advance. There are lots and lots of past papers available online, and the university provides free STEP support for you. That's certainly something that should be in the back of your mind if you're applying for mathematics. Now, I'll just say a few things about the interview process, because you do hear a lot online about what happens in these interviews. I want to reassure you, they're not the final hurdle. It's not like you have to get through everything, then pass the interview to get the offer. What we do is we weigh up all the information we have on you when we make those decisions. The interviews are, of course, an important part of that, but they're not the only thing that's important. So we look at things like GCSE achievements. We look at your teacher references, personal statement, predicted grades, all of these sorts of things when we make our admissions decisions. Now, the structure of these interviews, they're often 2 interviews per candidate, often with 2 interviewers in each interview. And really, these are modeled on our small group teaching sessions, so our supervisions here in Cambridge. It's no surprise, in mathematics, these interviews are pretty much all about solving mathematics problems. And these will usually be things that you have the tools to solve, i.e. you've covered this in your A-level or maybe GCSE mathematics courses, but it's a more challenging problem than you're used to seeing as part of your normal coursework. And the role of the interviewers is just to stretch and challenge you a little bit, give you some tips and advice, see how you take on board new information, and basically teach you through a rather difficult problem. And what we're really trying to assess in these interviews is your suitability for the Cambridge supervision system. Do you like to learn in the way that we do a lot of our teaching? So just keep in mind that these are very much academic focused interviews, and the topic will be solving maths problems. Good resources available for you if you're thinking about applying. I would strongly recommend looking at resources prepared either by the university or the department or one of the colleges. So I think there's a lot of mock interviews out there that give a real sense, the flavor of the Cambridge admissions interview. Pay perhaps less attention to those videos you find on YouTube and TikTok. They don't have the same level, I think, of quality control that we have in our more official sources. So have a look at a few of these to get a sense of what the interviews are like, but just keep in the back of your mind, you're going to be assessed on doing mathematics problems. Now, let me just start to wrap up here with a few comments on what it is that Cambridge is looking for. So first thing, just to remind you, it is a competitive application process. Last year we had over 20,000 applicants for these 3,500 places. And the admissions process is really designed to help us find students who have an enthusiasm for their subject, who display some degree of motivation, so they want to go beyond their current syllabus. They're stretching and challenging themselves in their own time. And of course, we're looking for students who have the potential to deal with the relatively challenging and fast-paced nature of a Cambridge course. As I said earlier, decisions are holistic. We're trying to understand each candidate's strengths and weaknesses, and we really do look at all the information available when we make those decisions. Something else to mention, we contextualize our applications. And what that means is that we want you to be among the strongest students, say, in your school. And so we can benchmark your achievements against students from similar educational backgrounds. Just to give you kind of a wild example, if a student applied to us with 5 GCSEs, say at 8 or 9, and I can look up on a database and see the average student at their school actually achieved 6 or 7 GCSEs at that level, that would be perhaps slightly weaker student. But if that same student applied and they were at a school where, probably they're the first person ever to achieve that, that's really impressive. So we do try to contextualize your achievement against people from your school and from similar educational backgrounds. Okay, I want to kind of end on a few slides here talking about something that's very important to the application process. And this is what we call super-curricular study. I want to make a very clear distinction between super-curricular and extracurricular. Extracurricular are things that really have no direct relationship to your academic study. Things like music, drama, sports, volunteering. You should hopefully be doing some of these things in your life. I think they are very good for well-being and mental health. I think they can make you a better person, but they don't count for or against you in the Cambridge application process. Super-curricular study, on the other hand, these are activities you do outside of normal classroom hours and that are not necessarily assigned to you by the school, that are academic related and have direct relevance to the subject that you are applying for. And these really form, I think, the backbone of any application to a competitive university. I mean, not just Oxford and Cambridge, for instance. Super-curricular study tends to make students stronger overall. If they're spending a bit of their spare time reading about mathematics, challenging themselves with quite difficult mathematics problems, that tends to lift your exam results overall, and certainly makes the transition to university much easier. So super-curricular study is very, very important. So how best to use your time? We know that you're often very busy, being students, trying to stay on top of your coursework. You might have part-time jobs, you might have caring responsibilities. So it can really help when you're thinking about this super-curricular engagement to come up with some sort of a plan. This is what you want to achieve over the next few months or over the summer, and try to keep a workbook so you can keep track of your progress. I wouldn't be too prescriptive about this. I wouldn't say, set yourself an impossible challenge and then just, sort of beat your head against the wall if you don't get that done in time. Be flexible. If you're not enjoying a particular resource, try to do something else. But I think one important piece of advice is try to do a little bit of super-curricular study every day. Try to set aside a half an hour in the evening to work through a difficult mathematics problem, or maybe a few hours on a Sunday afternoon when it's quiet. It's much better to do these things a little bit at a time and build up those skills over weeks and months and even years than try to rush to do everything, say, the end of August before school starts again. You can view it a bit like getting really good at, say, a musical instrument or a sport. You attend weekly practice sessions every week, and over time, you get much better at playing the piano or playing football. And that's the kind of thinking I think that should be in the back of your mind when you're thinking of super-curricular activities in mathematics. Some examples of things that you can use, well, there's really a wealth of material available for you online. You are all in an example of a super-curricular activity. Right now, these master classes are exactly the sorts of things we look for when we ask students to stretch and challenge themselves outside of the syllabus. But there are really a huge number of fantastic online resources for you. Some great websites include underground mathematics, the Enrich program that's run through Cambridge, Isaac Physics, for those of you thinking of going down the mathematics and physics route, has some really wonderful and challenging physics problems there for you. Other examples in mathematics of super-curricular activities would be competitions, UKMT, for instance. Some of you might be competing in Olympiads as well, and that's fantastic. There is a suggested reading list on the Cambridge Mathematics faculty webpage. You could have a look at 1 or 2 books in there, maybe pick up a couple of things from there and then decide to read further in that subject. Problem-solving resources that I haven't mentioned. There used to be a paper called Step 1, which has been discontinued. That focused on AS level material. So the stuff that you're probably learning right now. There are still the past papers available online, many with solutions. That's a really good place to look. Challenge yourself there. Maths Olympiad past papers, Senior Mathematical Challenge Archive. Really, there's a huge wealth of resources available out there, and this is not an exhaustive list. This just really touches a tip of the iceberg. Go out and do your own exploration. But rough rule of thumb, I would encourage you to spend some of your time reading about popular mathematics and learning about different areas of maths on a kind of surface level, but don't lose sight of the really important aspects of getting good at solving difficult maths problems, because ultimately that's what your admissions interview is going to be about, and that's what the STEP exams are about. So sharpen those problem-solving skills at every opportunity. Now, I'm just going to conclude right here, leaving lots of time for questions. The faculty runs a mathematics open day, and they run a couple throughout the spring, on the 29th of April, the 13th of May. And on the 13th of May, Corpus will be running an event to coincide with that. So do sign up online. It's absolutely free. We'll welcome you to the college and you can meet some of our fellows and then participate in the departmental side of the open day, which runs in the afternoon. Large open days that are open across all subjects in the university, July 6th and 7th for us in Cambridge this year, Oxford, June 28th and 29th. Those will be in person, so you can come and have a wander around, look in the various colleges and departments and get a sense of what it's like to be a student here. So I think I'll wrap up there. That leaves me a good chunk of time to take questions. I see there's already a lot in the Q&A. So James, I'll turn it over to you. Thank you.
Thanks, Michael. So a couple of easy ones for you, I think, just to warm you up. Does Cambridge look at all applications for maths?
Does it look? Well, yes, it looks certainly at every application for maths. We tend to deselect relatively few people for mathematics. So if we think you have a shot at being a decent mathematician and perhaps doing well on the STEP papers, we will interview you. So I think maths has one of the highest interview rates of any of the large subjects in Cambridge.
Great. Someone asks, is there any advantage to doing an open application versus choosing a college in terms of acceptance rates?
No, the answer is no. But keep in mind that the way the algorithm works, you tend to be allocated to a college which has received relatively few applicants in that subject in that year. So if you look at the colleges and you think, oh, I really don't want to go to that one, then there's a chance that you might be allocated to that one via the algorithm. So if you have any preferences about location, size, we have women-only colleges, which are interesting for some. But if you have any sort of strong preference on any of those sorts of things, I just say pick the college you like the most and apply to it.
Great. And then someone asks, by extension, will the application the acceptance rates vary between college to college? So, for example, we compared to other colleges don't take that many mathematicians, so is it harder to get in here?
Yeah, so at Corpus, although we take fewer mathematicians, say, than other colleges, we get far fewer applicants than most other colleges. So our applicant to offer ratio, and I can speak about this because I know you're all mathematicians. So that ratio is about the university average. Now, some colleges will be, frankly, more competitive to get into. You can look at these statistics online. Trinity, King's, very popular colleges. But what they will do, if once they fill their places, students who are still very strong, but they just don't have room for, they'll put in what's called the winter pool. And this runs in January, and it allows colleges that don't get a lot of applicants in maths that year to have a look at your application and give it a second chance. So that system works in your favor. But just be aware that some colleges are very competitive to get into, but your overall chances of getting into the university don't matter, don't really depend on college, rather, because of this mechanism we have for reallocating applications.
Great. And then a question probably that you'll be more than able to answer. What is the real difference between maths and physics? And is there any difference in the application process? So somebody asks, will you have to take the STEP exam if you are applying for maths and physics?
Yes, you'd have to take the STEP exam if you're applying for maths and physics. The course structure, I mean, I think Daria is here. She might want to weigh in on that if she's available. Daria, there you are. Yeah, do you want to comment a little bit on the difference in maths versus maths with physics?
Yes, certainly. So the difference mostly comes during the first year. So after the first year, you will need to decide whether you would like to continue with the mathematics studies or whether you would like to switch to the natural sciences drivers. And during the first year, you basically don't do 2 lectures in mathematics and replace them with the physics lectures. So during the Michaelmas term, it will be numbers and sets. And during the Lent term, it will be dynamics and relativity. You will also need to do the physical practicals as a part of your math with physics study. But I also have to note that since many students decide to continue with mathematics afterwards, we usually ask them also to do the supervisions on the numbers and sets course, even if they don't go to the lectures, because otherwise the students will be disadvantaged if they continue with the mathematics course after the first year.
Yeah, but you're not examined in the first year on numbers and sets. It's just the supervision.
You're not examined on that, yeah.
Great. And then, so Joseph, a related question, Joseph asked, and I think it's probably because they met Peter Halen today, who talked about this. So if you're interested in theoretical physics, are you better going through maths or through natural sciences?
It depends on who you speak to. I'm going to argue maths with physics is the perfect compromise, because you can do a little bit of physics, just like a natural scientist in your first year, a little bit of maths like the mathematicians, and then defer your decision until the end of first year. I think that's a good compromise. Daria, would you agree with that, or would you take a different view?
I think if you really would like to do theoretical physics, then you should be aiming to do part 3, and part 3 is a mathematics course.
Yeah.
Great. Michael, someone asks, how important are official maths competitions? They go to a high school, they go to a secondary school where these aren't really supported. So will it torpedo an application if they haven't done anything like that?
No, I think you saw on that slide, that was just one of the many, many things that you can do that would count as super-curricular engagement. If your school doesn't really direct you towards these, or you don't get a lot of support for them, you can just spend a lot of time doing past step 1 papers, or even just looking at the problems and solving them on your own. And then when it comes to the point of being interviewed, if you've got really sharp mathematical skills by then, that's really all that matters. So don't be put off if you don't have mathematics competition experience. There are many other ways to explore mathematics.
Great. And then we've got a couple of questions about this. Do we discriminate against students who go to independent schools?
No. I can just quote you some numbers from Corpus last year. So last year for our UK applicants, we admitted 22% from independent schools. And then, so that was our offers, 22% of our UK offers were to independent schools, and 23% of our applicants were from independent schools. So we tend to just look for the best person, whether they're state or independent, and admit accordingly. And that's roughly the same across the university, few percentage points either way, but we're looking for talent no matter what school background a student has.
Hayden asks, if you don't make your 1-1 step offer, but you got a 2-1, would you be reprieved or would you immediately lose your offer?
I think that will depend on, well, first of all, if there's any extenuating circumstances, if there's an illness or something, your school should immediately get in contact. I think we do look very carefully at scripts that are close to the border. So if you just narrowly miss that one, Daria and I and Chris will sometimes have a look at the script and just see if there's grounds for a reprieve. But if you're pretty far off missing the offer, so if you're getting, say, step 3.3 or step 2.3, then you probably would forfeit the offer. And the reason for that is we have pretty good statistical evidence that shows, students who are getting 1.1 or above in step tend to cope with the pace of our course. It moves quite quickly in Cambridge, and we want to make sure we're admitting students who can cope with those sort of academic demands.
Great. So someone's a couple of questions about the pool. So someone asks, would you ever be switched to another college during the interview process?
Not in Cambridge, but in Oxford, they run their equivalent of the pool in a slightly different way. So you show up and you interview at Merton College or something, and then you might be contacted and said, well, could you interview tomorrow at Univ, for instance? So they do that kind of reallocation between the colleges in situ during the interview process. That's my understanding, whereas we do everything after the Christmas break.
Great. And we've also got a couple of questions about A-levels. Do we prioritize students who do 4 A-levels?
Daria, I see you shaking out your head. Do you have a particular view on this?
No, not at all. So I think we require mathematics and further mathematics, and a third A-levels course. It's up to you what you would like to do. Of course, if you do physics, you will have an easy time with some mathematics courses when you start here, but it really doesn't matter if you do the 4th A-level course or not.
Great. Sorry, I'm just trying to put some, I'm conscious of time, so I'm just trying to put some questions together. I'll ask this question just while I play for time, and Michael, you're going to laugh at this. What would be the advantages of studying, for example, a mathematics degree over a humanities degree at Cambridge? And they've said history because they know I'm a historian as well.
Have to be a bit careful. I would say, so one of the things that we're very big on in Cambridge is what we call transferable skills. So some of our students, of course, go off into academia and become mathematicians. And obviously, it's a great training of the mind for that. But many of our students do not. But through your study of mathematics, you gain, really world-leading abilities in problem solving, in handling data, in modeling, whatever branch you specialize in. And these are highly valued skills across a huge variety of employers. Mathematicians are among the most employable graduates of the university. Daria, in your experience, past students, what have they gone off to do if they don't decide to go down the academic route for their career?
Yes, I think we already answered a couple of those questions during the morning session today. So people go into finance, trading, engineering, software development. Yeah, so this kind of stuff, because there's a lot you can do with mathematics.
Yeah,
I would also.
This is not to say you don't learn transferable skills in humanities.
I would just say that, they're very maths and history obviously quite different, or very different, and you should know by now what you are truly interested in, what you truly love. I think if you're picking a degree purely on where you think it might take you, or necessarily the skills you acquire, I don't think that's necessarily a recipe for success. You want to be picking the thing that you just love to study for 3 or 4 years, and I would have thought by now you probably know that, is what I would guess. Yeah. So a couple of people ask, I mean, Michael and Daria, both opinions worthwhile. Does anybody need work experience to make a successful application for maths? No, easy.
Not at all.
Great. And a couple of people have actually asked, what is the point of the STEP exam? So we don't have an entrance exam. You get made an offer to study, which includes STEP, but also your A-level grades. What is the point of the STEP exam?
So, Daria, do you want to take this or shall I?
Yeah, sure, certainly. The STEP exam contains problems that are very similar, well, that are in their nature very similar to the problems that you would encounter when you study mathematics in Cambridge. So the mathematics at university is a slightly different kind of animal as the mathematics that you study during your A levels. So, and the preparation to the STEP exam and taking the STEP exam shows us that you are able to do this kind of mathematics that you would be required to do when you start doing mathematics here. And that is the first reason. The second reason is also that we are working with a quite high cover ratio for our offers. So we usually may make twice as many offers as the students eventually come to study mathematics in Corpus. And this allows us also to make more offers and to see, so basically then it's up to you whether you will make this offer or not. So we give you a lot of chances, and that is up to you whether you will realize these chances or not.
Great. Do you want to add anything to that, Michael? I think that Daria covered that quite nicely.
No, that was a great answer.
Okay. So a couple of people have asked about the structure of the course. I might go to Daria. Is there any difference between the modules you can take depending on what college you apply to?
No, not at all, because lectures are held centrally and organized by the department rather than by the individual colleges. And so you go to the lectures all together to the Faculty of Mathematics, and then you are just going to be supervised in your college. But the choice of your college doesn't influence which courses you are able to take.
And a related question, a couple of people asked about, apart from maths with physics, are you able to combine maths with any other subject or borrow papers from other degrees?
No, and that's not an option in mathematics.
Yeah. Michael, question for you. Are there any required GCSE grades to study maths?
I mean, we would hope that you're getting an 8 or 9 in your GCSE level mathematics.
Great.
But beyond that, if you've got a 6 in French, I mean, it's not going to sink your application.
Linguists all over the country sigh a massive relief. Thank you. Do you and to stay with you, Michael, do you need physics to study? Do you need physics at A level to be able to study maths with physics?
No, although if you're doing, say, maths and further maths and one other science, it's recommended where there's flexibility to take the mechanics modules in as part of your further math study, because those mechanics modules will prepare you for the type of content that you see in first year physics in natural sciences.
Great. So Jack asked, and there's a question, I'm conscious of time again, so we won't have too many more. Jack asks, what do you think is the biggest mistake that people make when they apply for maths at Cambridge?
Can I take this one?
Please.
Yeah.
Spending too much time thinking about the first sentence of their personal statement. It really doesn't matter. So we are not, you're not applying to study humanities, so you're applying to study mathematics. And if you can demonstrate your factual engagement, like through your A levels and through super curricular activities that you're really interested in mathematics, don't think too much about explaining to us how beautiful mathematics is.
Yeah, Michael, anything you'd add to that?
I think that's a great answer.
Yeah, great. So a couple of people asked about how to start preparing for STEP. So a couple of people have asked about when do you think it's best to start to start your preparation for your STEP exams, but also with a couple of questions about if their school does not offer any support for STEP, is there any resource they can access to help them?
Yeah, I can take that one. So the university offers free STEP support courses for offer holders. So I wouldn't start, necessarily revising for STEP papers 2 and 3 now. Let's get the offer first, and then you can worry about those. But having said that, it's not a bad idea to get a sense, as Daria says, the problems in STEP are a bit more involved and a bit less prescriptive than what you might find in an A-level exam. So looking at the previous STEP 1 paper questions, that's the old paper that's now discontinued, that is based on year 12 material. That's not a bad thing to start doing relatively soon, to start familiarizing yourself with those and those styles of questions. But I would say, don't worry if your school doesn't provide support, because the university will give you, free support online. I don't know, Daria, would you say anything different to that?
I think there's also this Enrich program from the Faculty of Mathematics. It offers all kinds of resources. There is a good book from Steven Cycles that you can also use as a preparation for your STEP exams. And well, I mean, start as early as possible. And well, just if you enjoy doing mathematics, and if you think about studying, applying to study mathematics in Corpus or in Cambridge, start as early as possible.
Yeah, just get problem solving is what I would say. A couple of people have asked, again, possibly Michael, will they be disadvantaged if they are only going to do 2 A-levels in year 13? So assuming that they have completed their full A-level maths course in year 12.
Yeah, I think we'd have to look closely at the application. I would say most of our students we would expect to be doing 3 A-levels or the equivalent at the same time. But we are aware that teaching sort of differs and policies differ across schools. And so that's something you might want to contact an individual college and get their feedback on your application. The reason we do this is because, studying at university is kind of like doing 4 A-levels at the same time. So if you're only doing 2, there's a question about whether you can handle the workload. But as I said, that's a slightly nuanced question. Best to contact the college you're interested in and get their thoughts.
Great. Someone asks, do we offer any academic scholarships at Cambridge?
So for most UK students, everybody pays the same, the same admissions fees, or the same university fees, and pays the same maintenance. Colleges can give individual scholarships to people on the basis of academic attainment. We have various prizes we would give. Colleges can also give bursaries to support students if they have financial need, and those aren't necessarily tied to an academic achievement. So the short answer is it does vary a little bit from college to college, but there are no big university academic entrance scholarships like you might have, say, in US university.
Yeah. And then the classic, which we always get asked, what are our opinions on the EPQ, and are they helpful for a mathematics application?
Daria, do you have views on that from a real mathematics DOS?
Sorry, can you repeat the question, please, James?
What is our EPQ, so extended project qualifications, helpful for a mathematics application?
I really don't think that we will pay too much attention to this. So if you think that you can do mathematics and we interview you, then it really doesn't play such a big role.
Yeah. Michael,
Yeah,
you'd agree? Yeah.
I think it's just it's one of the many super-curricular things you can do. If your school offers it, great, and you want to do some reading about something off syllabus as part of your EPQ, that's fine. But ultimately, it doesn't make or break your application. There are many other ways to do super-curricular reading.
Okay. I'm conscious of time, and David is waiting. Okay, yeah. So I think well, lots and lots of questions about interviews and like how to prepare and what you look for. So possibly if I said to Michael, how do you best prepare for an interview? And then Daria, perhaps you said, what do you look for in an interview? We split the question between you. That would be useful.
Yeah, okay. So my advice on preparing for an interview is really getting back to what I said earlier, doing a little bit of mathematics each day, just building up your skill set slowly over a period of time. And, when you come to the interview, if you've done lots of mathematics problems and you're quite fluent and able to take on board, advice and tips and that sort of thing and get through a difficult problem, then you're going to do quite well. So it's a steady and slow approach would be my advice.
Yes, I think to the second part of this question, what we are looking for in an interview, well, your ability to think independently, your ability to cope with unseen mathematical problems, your ability to pick up hints, your ability to make unknown connections between different areas of mathematics. And yes, I think that is yeah, and your enthusiasm for mathematics as well. So that is what we are looking for in an interview.